website and you try to study what they do. What StatCounter does is basically produce some charts with, operating system shares and browser shares, and we have all kinds of companies that do that. Net apps, net applications, and you have for search companies like Hitwise, and you have I can't remember the other ones. There is also Nissan doing that. Anyway, this company give some more information than usual about the methods they use, and they give you some insight into the data as well. So this person went through their data, and using my prior advice, I wrote like 50 posts about it, I think, and I wrote some articles in the press about that, about how they use a wrong sample that's biased in the sense that it uses a lot of IP addresses from the United States. Now, the United States has very low adoption of free desktops compared to the world at large. So if in any circumstance you measure either search market or browser market or operating system market in the United States, it tends to favor American companies. In most cases, so in most cases, these companies do pretty well in the United States for all sorts of reasons. It can be advertising, it can be some sort of patriotic duty if people might feel to buy an Xbox if they live in the United States, not buy it from Nintendo or from Sony because that's Japanese. But in any case, this company claims that it's measuring global market share for all sorts of parameters, for all sorts of things that they list. Now, what we found out is that among the IP addresses they use, about 25% are from the United States. Now that's interesting because the population of the United States is about 4%, and although more people in the United States use the internet and are actually connected to the web, if you want to get a representation of the IPs around the world, you have to maybe give them about 10% because the largest population of the internet is China. Now, how much of China did they measure? The answer is like 2 point something percent. I'll give you the exact number. Basically, they give 10 times higher the weight for the United States than to China. Now, what you'd expect them to measure in that case is more like the market share of the United States, neglecting all kinds of markets where in China they get lots of pre-installed Linux on the computer, usually red flag, and we don't really know exactly how much adoption there is of free operating systems. Now, this company, that's the interesting thing, it's to do with comments, because this company has been sending us messages back and forth by comments because they were quite concerned about this report. So obviously it did actually touch a nerve. When we said this company is not giving you the real numbers, it's giving you something else. And then it turned out they were trying to defend themselves and try that we got the facts wrong. What they say is that they measure a very, very big number of websites, which I basically told them doesn't mean anything unless the websites are distributed in a correct way. So you can take 1,000 websites, or you can take 1,000,000 websites in the United States, but you're still dealing with biased data. You don't deal with global data. So that's what I asked them, how do you distribute the data? And then it turned out even worse because they actually told us that what they measure is how many people from different countries land in the websites that are partners of these companies. So they don't exactly measure what you would think. What they measure is how many people click through from different countries and land in some of the websites that give away their logs to the company. Now, my response to this is, first of all, you probably check lots of American websites, and then you get all those hits from the United States. And what about those Chinese websites and Brazilian websites? You don't get any of that. You probably don't see that. They don't apply any weighting. That's what they admitted to me, that they don't apply any weighting in statistics, and that's just wrong to do. And if I remember correctly, they had all kinds of other weaknesses, but some of them is they don't normalize by number of pages viewed. They don't account for dynamic IPs, and they don't take account for the fact that lots of zombie PCs are basically going around the web, presenting themselves as Internet Explorer with Windows, but obviously that's just a infected computer. It's not a real person surfing the web. It's just something gone wrong. And we found all kinds of deficiencies there. You can see it on the site. It ended up with the person behind the company just basically trying to run away and kind of not give an argument, say, "Oh, thanks very much, and go to our site if you have any inquiries." But it kind of seems like they don't like it being exposed, that their method is not measuring what it claims to be measuring. So I think we kind of won this one. And the person, I should point out, was very polite, so they kind of had a very professional talk about the methods, and we corresponded and we tried to argue about the methods that they use.
I mean, I often say on OpenBytes that I'm not, I don't hold any faith in any stats or figures, because they can obviously be written to say whatever you like. What I will say is this: so you look at, and anybody can do this. You go to any forum, any comments section of any blog that covers a generic topic about computing, and have a look and see what some of the users are saying in there. Certainly, when you look at the ratio of people who are talking about Linux and about using Linux, it's not a 0.1% of them, like the stats are claimed to be. I think the global stats are claimed by Microsoft advocates as being about 1% of computer users are Linux users, apparently. But if you look at the forums and you just do the calculations yourself, you can see there are lots of people that are Linux users commenting and taking the time to write things about the about Linux, and nothing for me was more obvious than when I was posting on a site called Microsoft Watch, and at the time it was where I met a lot of good friends that subsequently I've continued up conversations with in the TechBytes IRC chat room. And what it appeared is that at one point in 2008 there was more Linux users talking and having conversations about Linux on the Microsoft Watch site than there was Microsoft users, which I think said a lot. And to me that's a better example of usage figures when you're looking at real people having conversations with each other. So that was my take on it. Certainly what I would say, sorry, I was going to say, certainly what I would say, whatever the figures are quoted as, I think we're not very close to being accurate, because we can never be accurate. We don't know how many people buy a machine and replace it with a Linux operating system. Nobody can be 100% sure, but certainly from the talk and people on the street, even, people have heard of Linux now, and that's a lot different to, sort of 4 years ago. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I want to say two things. One of them is, I read, I think it was about a year ago, make some memories, a journalist was complaining about the fact that too many articles were written about Linux. Now, his argument was only 1% of them use Linux. Only 1% of people use Linux, but you see it everywhere, in comments, in articles and things. And obviously the response was, well, wait a second, who says it's 1%? Apparently you kind of not paying attention to what might be the true picture. But one of the things I should say about net applications, I wrote about 12 posts criticizing what they do. Net applications is probably one of the most widely quoted. How should I put this? It's not even the statistics. It's more of a kind of a rubbish quick numbers that they change overnight. One of the things they did is they changed the market share of Apple from like 10 to 15%, to 10 to 5% overnight. And basically what they say is, well, we kind of corrected something in a figure, and all of a sudden, just like, well, I suppose Apple has just lost half the market share. Well, it's okay. And that just shows how random the stuff can be. What they said in this case is that they started to account for China. Of course, in China, you barely have any Mac users. So it went down from like 10% to 5% when they did that. Now, I should also point out, what I don't like about net applications is if you look at the staff, there is some Microsoft connections about one person there who's one of the seniors. He has some past in Microsoft. And Microsoft is a client of net applications, meaning basically Microsoft pays the money. And Apple also is a client, so Apple also pays the money. And you see these, they can sell bias. And what actually Microsoft is saying not very openly, but they say it explicitly in one of the leaked documents, is basically analysts are selling out, and that's their business model. Just stating basically the obvious, but you hear it from Microsoft's own mouth, that they say, well, the way analysts make money is not by showing you statistics. That doesn't make any money. But when they allow you to change the